Hey, welcome back, knife nerds and everyday carry people. It's the Big Canucker here, coming at you with a look at a knife that I've had for a long time, but haven't carried it a whole lot. It did not find its way into my rotation like I thought it would. I've owned this knife for about a year and a half, and well, we'll go over this knife. All right, it is the Ontario Carter Prime frame lock flipper. This is, you know what? It's a really polarizing look on this knife. A lot of people, it is kind of a sheep's foot blade here, but it's got a really weird kind of look to it. And that isn't the thing that bugs me. Let's kind of go over the knife specs first, and then we'll kind of go over its pros and cons. All right, just to give you a little bit of price comparison, a little bit of a size comparison. Of course, we've got the Lucky Loonie. Now that my Lucky Toonie is in my granddaughter's pocket, or probably more than likely at the candy store. All right, so she's about the same size as the Paramilitary 2. And then we've also got here one of the small little wee EDC blades, the Spyderco Dragonfly here. And you can see there it's got a little bit of size on the Dragonfly. So that just gives you an idea of the size of this bugger. And we'll put away this Paramilitary 2. All right, so overall length is 8 inches. Which is, a fair size. Your blade length is 3 3.3 inches. It just seems like a bigger blade than that. Unfortunately, I don't have a ruler here with me, but I guess maybe the internet doesn't lie. All right, your blade thickness is 0.15 inches, which is 3.8 millimeters. So it is kind of a real beefy blade on here. You've got a hollow grind edge here too as well. And the finish on here is kind of a black stone wash. And you know what? I have used this knife. Don't get me wrong. It didn't hit my pocket and for one day and then go away. I actually did use this for quite a bit, and then one day I had this in my pocket. It is a tip-up carry, and it was sitting in my pocket like this. Whether it's weak detent or because you've got the flipper tab is kind of a large flipper tab, it might have hit something in my pocket, but I reached in there and it bit me fiercely. It was a bad cut. And because I do have this absolutely razor sharp, it bit deep, and it was just not a very happy day. And so since that day, I've been a little bit gun shy to throw this in my pocket, and I do use this once in a while. I mean, I do around the house. I'll pull it out because it is a fantastic action on there. That's the real big positive on this. But let's kind of go through the rest of this knife. You've got a handle length is 4.6 inches. Your handle thickness is 0.51, which is just a smidge over half an inch. And she's a little bit heavy at 5.42 ounces. So when you start to get above 5 ounces, it's the type of knife that when you put it in your pocket, you know that it's there. The handle material is actually a nice gray titanium, and there is a titanium frame lock. Now, I did not notice that it had a hardened insert, but not suffering from any sort of lock stick whatsoever. And I don't think there's any over travel stop on here either, but it is such a beefy handle that I don't think you have to worry about that. I don't think you have to worry about bending this out too much that it then becomes not usable. As a matter of fact, when I first got this knife, there were a few things that I did to it, but we'll finish off here with the specs on this. Your carry here is a right-handed carry only, and it is tip up. There is no, it's not an ambidextrous knife whatsoever. It is just straight, the clip's on the one side, and it'll only go tip up. All right, and like I said, it is a flipper with a frame lock and a titanium handle, and the blade is actually D2 tool steel. So D2 is, in your pantheon of steels, I'm going to say, it's a tough steel. It's a decent steel. It is not the absolutely best edge holding steel, but it does a great job. Certainly a lot better than your entry level steels like your AUS 8 or your 8CR13 MOV. Absolutely, I am such a knife snob. I hate the 8CR13 MOV. You're definitely an upgrade if you go with the D2 tool steel. It's a little bit on the softer side at 57 to 59 Rockwell on here. So it is, although not going to hold your edge forever, it is very, very easy to strop this knife up to a really a hair whittling edge and a mirror polished edge. And that's, I sharpen this by hand, and then I just, I use it. I cut a bunch of cardboard. She got a little bit dull. I took my strop and I stropped her for about 10 minutes, and it was back to just about, it's back to shaving sharp, close to hair whittling, just off the strop. So that's the one nice thing about it is easy to sharpen, and the flipper action on this is tremendous. It does rock it out, this flipper tab, and the weight of this and the D10 is dialed in, so it never fails to open. Just rockets like you wouldn't believe. And then the action on it is very drop shutty. Now I did out of the factory here, I left the pivot alone because the pivot is actually a free bearing system. So it is a bearing system, but they're not cage bearings. I'm not sure if it's a full IKBS bearing system, but when you open this knife out, you'll see there probably, I think there's a dozen or so bearings around here on each side, and they're just in a little bit of a track. So when you do take this apart to maintain it, watch out, because you could have those all over the place and then you're done. So there is no cage bearings, they're free floating system. So now the one thing I did do with this when I first got it is I felt that the lock here was a little bit too stiff. So what I ended up doing is I opened the knife up and then I took this and I just bent it out. I gave it a little bit of a bend out, reset that a little bit, and it just seemed like it made that a whole lot more smooth, and it is smooth. That's the one thing I got to say about this knife, is it's extremely fun to play with. It is a very satisfying click. It is very smooth. I'm not sure if you can see that. You can see it just sucks in when it gets that area there, and it just clicks in. Great action on this. Now this knife is an Ontario knife, and it was designed by a Robert Carter, who's got a custom knife called the Generalist, which is very similar to this, costing many more times this. This is right around $100 American. How about $120, $130 Canadian? And you know what? A really solid, fun knife, but it's got a lot of knocks against it as far as I'm concerned. The most being the fact that that didn't stay closed and it bit me quite badly. Now the other thing here is, I'm not sure you can see here, is when this knife first got here, this edge here was really uncomfortable. It came from the factory way too sharp, and it dug into my palm, and I hated it. It bothered me so much that I went and I took some sandpaper and I gave it a nice, I kind of rounded it off a little bit, sanded it up, and that made it quite a bit bearable. This knife is very angular. It's got lots of really sharp edges. The jimping on the top here it's a nice big fat thick jimping, and I wish that they had maybe taken this and just, as you can see here, the stonewash is kind of worn away because I sanded it down a little bit, because it just, like, it's that type of jimping that seems to cut into your thumb when you bear down on it. And it's great if you have a pair of gloves on it, but when you've got veal-like hands like me, you don't want that kind of jimping. So that jimping was a little bit uncomfortable. The angles on here, it was lots of hot spots along the bottom here. This jimping's not very comfortable, and the fact that it opens up. So I don't know. This is a knife that I don't think that I would buy again, no matter how fun it is to flip and the drop shut-attitude. It's just not one I think that I would put back in my collection. I'm sure somebody out there really loves it, and somebody has a great time using it. I just don't happen to be one of them. This isn't one that I would recommend. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give this knife probably a 4 and a not recommend. So, if you've got an Ontario Carter Primer, you're thinking of buying one, it's something that you might want to look past for this time, unless you can get it at an absolutely wicked price and you know going ahead what the flaws are and you can live with them. But other than that, it's one I think that I would stay away from. All right, well, thanks very much for stopping by. And please, if you like what you saw here, please hit the old subscribe button and give me the thumbs up. I do appreciate it very, very much. And so I want you guys out there to please stay safe. Keep your stick on the ice, the shiny side up. This is the Big Canucker saying adios.